Okay. Oh, well, I guess I should wait for the signal. Okay, there's the signal. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Um, I'm going to go ahead and call to order the meeting of the City of Bloomington Council. And if I could ask Madam Clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Kearns. Here. Councilmember Bolin.
Here.
Councilmember Motney.
Here.
Councilmember Dannenberger.
Here.
Councilmember Becker.
Here.
Councilmember Hendricks.
Here.
Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Here.
Mayor Millawambe.
Here. And at this point, I'm going to ask for a motion to allow Councilmember Ward to participate in a meeting remotely due to work reasons.
I'll move.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Hendricks and seconded by Councilmember Bolin. And are we doing a voice vote?
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Councilmember Kearns.
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin.
Yes.
Councilmember Motney.
Yes.
Councilmember Dannenberger.
Yes.
Councilmember Becker.
Yes.
Councilmember Hendricks.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes. Okay, awesome. Councilmember Ward, you are now official. Are you there?
Yes, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Wonderful.
And we'll have to, you have to be fairly vocal to make sure that we get to you in terms of questions, because sometimes we get too excited about what's going on here. So we're now going to move on to recognitions and appointments. And first, we're going to start with a proclamation for National Law Enforcement Appreciation Month as requested by the Police Department. And I'm going to need Chief Symington to come up to the podium. Chief Symington and friends, I guess. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and read the proclamation and then give you an opportunity to say a few words. Let's see. So this is a proclamation recognizing May as National Law Enforcement Appreciation Month. It is with great significance that we recognize National Law Enforcement Month in 2024 in time to honor the service and loss of those law enforcement officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice while protecting our communities and safeguarding our democracy. Whereas there are approximately 800,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Bloomington Police Department. And whereas Illinois is the proud home of more than 42,000 dedicated police officers, including 27 members of the Bloomington Police Department who selflessly put their lives on the line to keep our community safe. And whereas the Bloomington Police Department, established in 1850, lost 2 police officers in the line of duty, Detective Sergeant John E. Jack Penn on August 12, 1931, and Patrolman Bill Paul Osborne on February 19, 1986. And whereas these Bloomington police officers stand as leaders and public servants, engaging and building trust with and educating the community about the importance of collaboration and public safety. And whereas we appreciate the extraordinary efforts and sacrifices made by police officers and their family members to protect our homes, schools, workplaces, places of worship, and roadways. And whereas it is vital that we as a community recognize National Law Enforcement Month as an opportunity to show our full support for these professionals who work tirelessly to keep us safe. Now, therefore, I, Mboka Malambwe, Mayor of the City of Bloomington, Illinois, do hereby proclaim May 2024 as National Law Enforcement Appreciation Month. I urge all residents to join me in expressing our deepest gratitude and sincere appreciation to our law enforcement officers for their unwavering commitment to serving our community and protecting lives. Let us honor their service. Thank you. Give you a chance to say a few words, Chief.
Mayor and Council, thank you for this opportunity and the proclamation, and certainly the recognition of
the fine work by the men and women of the Bloomington Police Department. We cannot do what we do without your support, and we understand that it takes a person of courage to swear to carry out the mission of the Bloomington Police Department and do it the right way. So again, thank you, council and mayor and city manager, deputy city manager, for everything that you do for the police department. Again, we serve selflessly and we serve proudly, and it's an honor to receive this proclamation tonight.
Thank you. And would you like to come up for the obligatory picture with the mayor?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Please, please. May I bring the assistant chiefs as well?
Yes, all your friends,
Awesome.
please.
Thank you.
Yes, and if everyone else would like to come up, feel free, please. Let's not be shy. Yeah, absolutely. This is not the meeting for anybody to mess around. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And now we are going to move on to the next proclamation, which is a proclamation for National Public Works Week as requested by the Administration Department. And I'm going to need Mose Ricky and Kevin Cothy to come up to the podium. And Colleen. Okay, this is a proclamation for National Public Works Week. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the city of Bloomington, Illinois. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our residents. And whereas it is in the public interest for the residents, civic leaders, and children in Bloomington to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2024 marks the 64th Annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now, therefore, I, Mboka Malambwe, do hereby proclaim May 19 through 25, 2024 as National Public Works Week. I urge all residents to join with representatives of American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to contributing to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. Thank you. Yes. And I believe we do have a short video to show, right?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome to National Public Works Week 2024. This week, we celebrate the dedicated professionals who maintain and improve our community's infrastructure. From the roads we drive on to the water we drink, Public Works employees ensure our daily lives run smoothly. Their work often goes unnoticed, but it's vital for our safety and quality of life. This year's theme, Advancing Quality of Life for All, highlights the essential role these services play in bringing people together and enhancing our community. Join us in honoring the hard work and commitment of our Public Works teams. Thank you for keeping our world connected and thriving.
Okay, awesome. That was a wonderful video.
Thank you.
Love it. Would you like to say a few words, please?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. In the video, you did hear the fact that they talked about a lot of the work that our public works staff does that goes unnoticed. And I'm here to tell you right now, that's going to change. We're here to tell our story, and we're very proud of our story. We are so lucky to have leadership such as yourselves that have the vision that's driving this city. But I want to remind everyone and understand that it's because of everyone in the Public Works Department and the sweat of their brow, the calluses on their hands, and the courage in their hearts that takes your vision across the finish line. So we are one giant team, and we want to make sure that everyone is a win-win situation in this team. So I want to say thank you for recognizing us. I'll turn it over if Kevin would like to say a few words or if Colleen would like to say a few words, but thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Okay.
Oh, they're both good, so I guess we're done.
Yeah, Kevin, sounds like you want to say a few words, Kevin?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I just want to acknowledge all of you, the elected officials, for your support for infrastructure, because it's critical, as you all know, to maintain what we have. And so without your backing and support, it's critical for what we do. So thank you for that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. How about you, Colleen? No? Okay, okay. Well, then you get to have the obligatory picture with me then. Yep. Thank you all very much for all the work that you do. Okay, so next we're going to move on to public comment. Do we have public comment?
We just have one person registered to speak after your statement, and we received no emailed public comment.
Okay.
The first person will be Serena Fish.
Okay, thank you. Public comment is an opportunity for speakers to provide their views and feedback to the city council. It is also an opportunity for the city council to listen and hear diverse points of view. To maximize the impact of public comment and show respect for the expression of all views, speakers should maintain civility and focus on city issues. Speakers must identify themselves for the record, but are not required to give their address. Each speaker is given the floor for 3 minutes, and the council does not respond or engage in debate. Any speaker that engages in threatening or disorderly behavior will be deemed out of order and their time seized.
Now it is. Okay. Back it up. I need 3 minutes because he's going to shut me down.
You're wasting time right now. It just keeps.
Hello. I'm sorry. My name is Serena Fish, and I'm head of a couple neighborhood things. I'm on the PSCRB board, which you're going to hear our yearly report. I'd like to compliment two city employees and township supervisor, City Clerk Leslie Clark Yoakum, and Debbie Skilrud, the supervisor. Anyone who missed the meeting that was called Tuesday night as an emergency, You missed democracy in motion at its fullest extent. I was so proud of this community and the two ladies that we mentioned and everybody that worked with them. When we walked in the door on the vote or the referendum question, we were vetted. Yes, I am a registered voter, and given a number. When it came time to vote, no matter what your opinion was, no matter which side you were on, you were asked to stand. I'm voting yes. I'm standing with my number. The numbers were counted. Anybody in the building could have counted the numbers. There was no question. There was no election interference. And the vote was the vote. And it was quite obvious how the community felt about the referendum. So some of you as trustees did show up because for that meeting, we were all just one more elector. We weren't a trustee, we weren't a council person, wasn't on a board. We all had a vote. We all stood up and placed that vote. And I have to tell you, I am very, very proud of how a potential question or referendum was handled. And that at the end of the night, no one could question the results. Again, kudos to Leslie and to Debbie Skilrod. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We are now going to move to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve consent.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Boland, second by Councilmember Hendricks.
Just
We-
call.
Call, okay.
Councilmember Kearns,
Yes.
Councilmember Bowling,
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Dannenberger,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Councilmember Hendricks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes. Okay. The item passes. There's no nays to announce. And now we're going to move on to the regular agenda. A presentation on the Public Safety and Community Relations Board Annual Report as requested by the Administration Department. And I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Jurgens to introduce the speakers.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. Every year we have a report from our Public Safety and Community Relations Board. Sometimes we have it earlier in the year. This year it happened to fall a little bit later. Nonetheless, we'd like them to come forward and present on what they've been working on over the last year. This is a board that's now in its 5th year. Is that right? Or 7th year? So this is a board that has a lot of started off, obviously really new and nothing that we had ever done before, nothing that really any other communities around us had done before. But here we are in the 7th year and things are, I think, going very well with them. And so tonight we will have them give us their annual report.
Hi, thank you. I'm Ashley Farmer. I'm here on behalf of the Public Safety and Community Relations Board to give our annual report, which is a summary of our activities over the past year, January 2023 to date. So first, just a quick review of our monthly and quarterly meeting dates. As of January 2023, our monthly meetings were the first Thursday of each month. Quarterly meetings were scheduled for the first Thursday of each quarter. As of January 2024, our meetings were changed to the 4th Wednesday of the month, and combined quarterly meetings are the 4th Wednesday of the month for each quarter. Our meeting locations over the past, over a year have been at Miller Park Pavilion, and now we meet here at the Government Center. Next, on the presentations to and feedback from the community, Monthly meetings have included reports from the Bloomington Police Department on the number of complaints they've received in the previous month, the year to date, as well as those pending investigation. And we get a detailed TASER report, which includes all instances in which a TASER was displayed or deployed and a description of that incident. Updates on crime resolution using automated license plate reader data are also reviewed. Future meeting dates, locations, and pending discussion items are discussed as well. The Bloomington Police Department reported that in 2023, there were 17 total complaints. In 2022, there were 21, and there were 32 complaints in 2021. Other topics at our meetings have included training and recruitment updates for Bloomington Police Department, TASER and use of force reports, a review of our board rules. We've discussed the role of the PSCRB in the community of Bloomington, as well as one of our goals specifically being community outreach and engagement. We've gone over the complaint review process, as well as traffic stop data from the Illinois Department of Transportation and a discussion of racial disparities in traffic stops. As mentioned, we've also received Flock System automated license plate reader updates and data reports. And we've discussed new BPD programs, including text to tip and the Lights On program. Feedback and questions from the community are also received by the board and actions taken from those suggestions. Next, an update on, or a report on complaints that have been reviewed. The PSCRB reviewed one request in 2023 through the city legal department. This case was reviewed at our March 2024 meeting. The complainant was a subject who believed that Bloomington police officers conducted an unlawful and illegal seizure of an individual who was on mandatory supervised release from the Illinois Department of Corrections. The Illinois Supreme Court case People v. Wilson upheld that a police officer can stop and search a person without a warrant when that person is on mandatory supervised release. The judge upheld this was a proper search and seizure, and the PSCRB review determined that proper protocols and procedures were followed by Bloomington Police Department. Next, an overview of our action items. First, a board members update. Both youth member positions have been vacated. Currently, there is one open board member position due to a resignation, and there are two other board members whose terms have expired but continue to serve at the pleasure of the mayor. Our most recent board member was appointed in March of 2024. Our biannual review of complaints, as part of our ongoing community outreach and education efforts, Bloomington Police Department provides for the PSCRB a compilation of all complaints filed to date for us to review at least twice a year. This excludes complaints set for or awaiting adjudication, or any complaints that may still be appealed to the PSCRB. In 2023, we reviewed complaints that have been filed to date, and the remaining complaints from 2023 will be reviewed at our May meeting. This provides the board an opportunity to ask questions about policies and procedures at BPD and provide clarification and more comprehensive understanding of those procedures that pertain to citizen interactions. We've also established a communications committee. This was formed within the PSCRB to help communicate meeting times and locations for the community and stakeholders. This supports our mission to help provide a forum to improve police community relations with BPD. We participated in a firearm training simulator. This was something that provided interactive scenarios in which board members had to make split-second decisions on de-escalating confrontations that police officers often encounter in their calls. We had a discussion on racial disparities in traffic stops, and we do get regular updates on this provided by Bloomington Police Department. This topic is also often discussed by our stakeholders at our meetings. And we have updated our PSCRB brochures. This outlines procedures on filing appeals to the PSCRB on complaints already filed with BPD. We have printed copies available at quarterly meetings. It's also available online. Bloomington Police Department provides these to any individuals that have had interactions with the police, and the brochure has been updated to reflect meeting times and locations and is also available in Spanish. And that concludes our annual report. At this time, I will take any questions.
Any questions from council members? Oh, sounds like you did a fantastic job.
Great, sounds good to me. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ashley. Okay, the next item on the agenda is item 6B, a panel presentation and discussion on community housing needs. As everyone knows, I think by now, this is a topic of a very high interest for everyone in the community, and we're hoping that as a council, but also staff, that we get an opportunity to further educate ourselves on the issues. So we certainly welcome those of you who are on the panel, and then there will be we'll have other discussions later on in future meetings, and for us to decide what, if anything, we would do as a council to address those issues. So I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Jurgens for his comments as well.
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate the panelists coming forward. This is a continuation of our discussion on the housing needs in the community. We'll ask each of the panelists to make a few remarks, some opening comments. We have about 20 minutes set aside for that, and then 30 minutes set aside for questions and answers. And we hope this will become an interactive back and forth to the extent that the council wants to dig a little further into what truly is the housing need right now in our community. As a reminder, next month, we will be turning to barriers to housing, why housing isn't coming perhaps as quickly as we would like, why we're not seeing more development, that type of thing. But this conversation is really designed to be more about the actual need that we are seeing in the community. So with that, I think we would start with Patrick Hoban, if you don't mind kicking us off.
Sure thing. Patrick Hoban, I'm the CEO of the Bloomington Normal Economic Development Council and also a Bloomington resident. I got here about almost 5 years ago. It's kind of surprising. When I got to town and economic development, one of the hardest things we have to do is to keep things confidential. And we're well aware of what Rivian was planning to doing, but we weren't allowed to tell anybody. So what they originally thought was going to be 500 to 1,000 jobs quickly turned into 3,000, 6,000, up to 8,500 jobs today. And a couple of weeks ago, we announced they're going to do another 500 jobs on top of that. In the meantime, over the past couple of years, Ferrero continues to announce expansion as well. So it's another 250 jobs. We saw this was coming. We couldn't tell anybody, but what we could do at the EDC was to commission a housing study. So we did that housing study back in 2022. And at that time, that was based off of projections from Illinois Department of Public Health and Populations. And so that was based on 2020 data that said that it would get up to 2030, that we'd see a gain of about 10,000 residents. This was before Rivian, this was before Ferrero. They just projected that natural gain of about 10,000. The formula that our housing consultants used was by taking the members of the households per household, which ended up being 2.35 for the projected home size. They divided that 10,000 gain number, which got us the 4,300 units. So that 4,300 units from the housing study had nothing to do with Rivian, had nothing to do with Ferrero. I was hoping that that would have got going by now, and there's actually about 3,000 units planned, more units that are not public that are still being discussed. But since then, if you take a look at Rivian's employment now, which we're looking at about 9,000, another, I'd say 250 for Ferrero. Then we add in the indirect, which is not here for Rivian because those are going to be the suppliers that are still looking at the area. There is the induced. We do have that because there's been a bump in our restaurants, and we can show that with cell phone data. Also, Ferrero is going to have some indirect, and they're going to have induced as well. When you combine all that together, the actual number of units could lie anywhere between 7,777 and then also 9,614. That's not talking about anyone that we're working with prospectively either. There's a lot of other projects that are in the pipeline, and the number one question they ask as soon as they get to the town, they love the area, they see the land, they see the power, and they say, everything looks great. Can I talk to your other major employers? And to me, that's the kiss of death, because as soon as they want to talk to their major employers, they're going to ask State Farm, Rivian, Caterpillar, ADM, how's hiring going? And they're going to say, we're all cannibalizing each other right now in about the same 45-mile labor shed. So then they look at me and they say, what are you doing about housing? And I say, we've got 3,000 units planned, but we'd like to see some of those move forward. Since then, we've also done an analysis with the state, a roundtable. One of the members is here today who participated with 10 developers. Asked them the same thing. What are your barriers, whether it's financial or local restriction wise, and how can we get over those? So I'm glad that you guys are looking at this. I'm glad the state is looking at it, and now the feds are looking at it. It's just a game of supply and demand. And I wish we could act a little bit sooner, about 3 years ago. But here we are, and I'm feeling very vindicated about it. But I'd love to get some homes so we can get some more workers and we can land some more deals.
Hi, my name is Meenu Bhaskar, and I am a current 2024 president for our local board, Mid-Illinois Realtor Association. I have been practicing real estate in this market, Bloomington Normal, since 2002. That makes it 22 years. Last 3 years, what I have seen, I have never ever imagined in Bloomington Normal that we'll have this kind of crisis. But we are in, like Patrick just explained it. First of all, I really want to thank you, Mayor, City Chief, Deputy Chief, and all council members to take initiative to understand exactly where this is coming from and what all you can help us to change this wind direction, because it's really not going into the right direction right now. And we are all facing that pinch every minute of it. So I'm really, really glad that you invited us so that we all can lead into the right direction. I have provided some house stats to all of you, which is in front of you. You will see in Bloomington Normal, our market, we are 21% down. That's a huge, huge number. On top of it, already we had so much of house crisis, and seeing between 2003 and 2004, this number is not a right number we would like to see for our stats. And I pulled up some Peoria stats also, which also shows how much they are declining. Even I have a Champaign number also, they are also declining. All these things is rising the price on the houses of which are already existing. So guess what? The new construction itself is so expensive because of the inflation has happened. It is costing the builders so much more money to build those homes. Those homes they are building, but if the buyer cannot afford that house, what good is those homes are? So people are just waiting in the line that, okay, I'll wait for an older home to come on the market, and then because there is not enough houses on the market, people are not moving up in their prices. We used to have data that every 7 years homeowners are moving up, either downsizing or upsizing, or I need extra bedroom. That number has gone from 7 years to 12 years now. People are holding on to their properties longer than they have ever done that in the past. That has affected us. So when I see all these numbers, 21% decline, that is a good indicator for next 90 days and 120 days. What is going to happen to Bloomington Normal market as far as the housing is concerned? That means the buyer demand is increasing, but the houses are not there. So this 21%, there is a possibility we'll see a higher percentage right there. So how we can fix those things, that's a big thing. I cannot change the price on the new construction price because inflation happened. The material is expensive, the labor is expensive, the land is expensive. Builders are not going to build if they don't have any profit in that game. And I totally get that. But again, if they're building 2,000 square footage house, which is with unfinished basement, and the price tag on that is $429,900, there are not many buyers in the market who can afford those. So we have to come to a place where we can figure it out, okay, how we are going to fix this. I was thinking, and I think there are a couple of things which you all should consider. One is how we can give incentives to the builders and the developers. Sit down with them, ask them what will work for them. Because if they are hurting, they're not going to build. And if they're not going to build, this housing solution is never going to be worked out. So we have to sit down with the developer. That's my first thing. Give them some kind of incentive, which they feel encouraged. They said, okay, let's go ahead and do it. And I think the ideas are going to come from those developers and builders if you agree to sit down with them and hear them what they want. We do have lands all around our town, but it's just not enough construction. The second thing which I think we should consider is on the new construction, because this problem can only be solved when we have more new construction and people are buying those new construction. If you guys can consider giving first 4 years or 5 years, some kind of property tax incentive to all those buyers who end up buying the new construction, like $2,500, just to take a rough figure, you know. That will encourage a lot of people who are sitting in their older home and wants to buy a new construction, but they are not doing it because they're seeing a big price tag on the property tax also. That will put a lot of buyers in those new construction. Once we move up that ladder, we will have free up more houses for the buyers who can only afford that property or that number or that value or that property tax. I think these are the couple things, if you as council member can think and pay attention to it and make some decisions on that, that will definitely going to help all of us. Thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ray Lai. I'm the Executive Director for the McLean County Regional Planning Commission. And thank you for having the MCRPC back since our presentation last Monday. Just want to point out a few things that we see in terms of housing needs. We see, as and then my colleagues, Mark will also add a few from the standpoint of MCRPC. One thing that we do see is there are a lot of great groups and organizations trying to solve the problem, housing in our community, from nonprofits to governmental entities to even private and even ISU, and really a lot of different groups and entities trying to solve it. But they're not really coordinated in a way. So we see there's a need for a cross-sectoral implementation group or committee, whatever you call it, really people like work together because with the same goal. That's one. Number two, which is the lack of affordable housing options, especially people in those different stages of their lives, whether it's like young couples with kids, without kids, or seniors. There are different needs for housing. Seems like there's not enough options for people in just their different unique stage of their lives. Number three, we also see that there's limited housing diversity. Yeah, we all see many houses in the community are single family detached, but there's not enough attached single family or townhomes or multi-family type housing that would serve the different needs of the population, whether those are the current population of people looking to move to these areas, such as things that what Patrick was saying about employers. I mean, the people from all over, looking for population growth. So it's housing diversity in terms of the types, would be important. So those are the three things I want to mention, and then Mark will add a few. Thank you.
Mark Adams, Community Planner with the McLean County Regional Planning Commission. So just to add a little bit to what Ray was saying about housing needs, really the barriers to access include high upfront costs. I know one of the key reports that came out, I believe in the last 2 months, that I think is a real good complement, really complements the Regional Housing Recovery Plan, is the periodic report update from the McLean County Housing Coalition, which is from United Way of McLean County, and also Prairie State Legal Services that came out back in March. It really highlights the need specifically for low-income residents related to barriers to housing, as well as it covers different stories that have been captured by our nonprofits. So I think that rather than kind of going too much into that, I think that would be a really good start if we're looking at housing needs. But definitely high upfront costs. There have been several examples of individuals who are looking just to get some sort of stable housing. And basically, we've heard stories of 2 months of security deposits on top of an application fee, on top of additional fees. And it's just not very feasible for those who are trying to rent. And so we know that that is a barrier, and also just a lack of support for vulnerable populations, especially when we're looking at permanent supportive housing, and we're also addressing homelessness. One of the books that really helped me to understand how we got here in terms of homelessness is a Housing Problem by Greg Colburn. I think it really helps us to understand how when the supply does not keep up and the vacancy rates plummet, and we see that rental costs have increased, what happens is our homeless tends to go up, and that's just because of lack of affordable housing. It sounds pretty obvious, but it is worth saying. And then the other thing I want to make sure I mention is with a competitive market, it's definitely those who have the least resources that are obviously at the most disadvantage. So when you have individuals who are struggling with mental health or substance abuse or domestic violence situations, they tend to be the ones that are most susceptible to homelessness. And so I think it may seem like common sense, but there's a lot more to be said there. And I think the other housing need that we've picked up on is also just the need for local, state, and federal funding for affordable housing. LIHTC, low-income housing tax credit, has been great, but we also need funding for supportive services so we can keep people housed. So that's a little bit there. So thank you.
Okay. I almost was looking at you as a panelist, Leslie, sorry. Sure. Okay, so I think at this point, I'm gonna ask if there are any questions. Councilmember Crumpler?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, panel, for coming out. I actually have a sort of a real estate question. I really appreciate the data you provided this evening. It's very illuminating. I wonder, and I like the idea of sitting down and meeting with developers. I think that's a very worthwhile thing to do. As you well know, we have a lot of infill in downtown Bloomington. And I wonder, could you speculate perhaps on what kind of incentives it might take for developers in this community to be willing to come into downtown, and look at some of the older buildings that need, rehabbing or updating, and maybe not act totally altruistically. I understand that those are businesses, but maybe some balance between profit and what's good for the community. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It's just, I have helped a lot of my buyers to build the new construction. So I have gone through that route a lot. When you reach out to developer and the builders, in 2006 and 8 and 9, when they really, really struggled selling homes, the market crashed and everything, the only builders who were survived that time, who were financially secured, not the small ones. So any builder who's taking a project like that, like a building which is in the downtown, can convert into condos. They do their maths. And if those math numbers are not making any sense to them, that's where they drop the ball. They just said, no, this is too much of a work. It's not going to give me enough thing. That's where I always like city and the developers sitting together. Because if we have those condos, first of all, we're resolving the housing issues, affordable housing for the people. Not independent houses are very expensive now. So I think our route should go. I was doing a study for Schaumburg area which is a suburb of Chicago, and I did my good knowledge on that. I drove around that area and just see how they mingled everything. To my surprise, no independent home owners is pushing back that you cannot have the multi-story building or 4-plex or 6-plex or 2 or townhomes in around us. Here, I have felt that because even my client said, hey, that neighborhood is coming. I do not like that kind of a neighborhood behind my neighborhood. It will depreciate my value. It's all in the mind, I think. We all need to change that mindset. When there is a lot of population come and you have a land restriction of land or the money power, how you can make it affordable, I think that's when you have to have a mindset shift between the council people, the city people, the developers, and the buyers, and the subdivision people also. So it's not one person who can change anything. So that's where I said it's very important to have those discussions. What will make it work to the developer to build that empty building into a condo building? They are willing to do. It's not they are not willing to do. But I think there is not enough support for them. So that's why these two proposals, which I thought will really help us in creating more housing in this community, first by helping the developers and the builders, and the second by giving incentives to the new homeowner who is buying a new construction. Just for 5 years. You might lose money for 5 years as a city for $2,000 or $2,500. Suppose if your property tax is $10,000 on that particular property, you are giving incentive of $2,500 for 5 years. After that, it will go up to the wherever it should have been. But that 5 years time is a big incentive for the new buyer. Every dollar counts. And I think when we have more housing, we are creating more, generating more income to the, as property tax for our city development also. So I think you guys come with open mind and listen to those builders and developers and try to help them.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, just real quick, I wanted to also make it clear. So in June, we are going to have a meeting with local developers, local commercial bankers, and really try and tackle and get into this question of what would it take to get some more housing going? So we will be having those conversations with the developers next week and or next month and reporting back on that as well.
Councilmember Hendricks?
Just kind of keeping in line with that same thought, when you are speaking to new construction, and you said at this time, new home buyers, are we talking about new construction entirely, or are we talking about new home buyers? Are we talking about both of those?
My suggestion for meeting with the developers is for the new construction separately. New buyers who move to this town don't have enough housing to choose from. And that can only be open when we build more. We are not building enough. And why we are not building enough? Because either the developers are not seeing the enough profit for them, or some hurdle is there. I don't know what hurdle. I'm not a developer, but I can see there is some hurdle because I see few new construction on the markets right now. And we see struggling the buyers buying those because they see their dollar does not give them the value. That is why I've come up with the second suggestion of giving them incentive for property tax. So something should be there to attract them to move. And these are two different things for developer and the buyer. Buyer can be coming from different town or moving up from smaller condo or townhomes to a bigger house. Their family is becoming big. But this whole chain is so connected. If we stop somewhere in between this chain, it stops the whole cycle. So that is why we have to pay attention. Then we are moving up the buyers. We buy the first home, then we have a girlfriend, now we need a townhome, now we are married, now we have children, now our kids are gone to college. I mean, there are seven steps when people change their housing. These days, we are not seeing much of that. It's gone from 7 years to 12 years, and that is affecting us. I mean, government has increased the interest rate also from 2.5% or 3% to 7%. That also didn't help us at all, you know. So
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that because I
Yeah.
think, there's so many different puzzle pieces to it,
yes,
right? And one of those that I think about too is we don't have even apartments for people to live in. And so I like the idea, especially, and I would be open to others, but especially of that new home buyer component. But you're right, there's so many other pieces that also go in where we need that construction. If I could continue, Ray, could you speak a little bit? Because I really like the idea of collaboration. And I know that one of the first things you talk about is that intergovernmental piece and the housing plan around that committee. And I like that we're meeting, but we also know it's much larger than just Bloomington. What do you see as the next steps of how we actually get that commission going?
Very good question, because that is really one of the key recommendations in the regional housing plan. As I said, we work with many partners really from different sectors in the housing industry, even through the development of this housing plan. We have been doing research on what's the best model. In fact, this afternoon, we consolidate into maybe a couple models that will be having further conversations with the administration and the council. We see that it would be multi-faceted in terms of the sectors. You're having governmental entities a minimum, right? But it takes more than that. It would take the developers, the property managers, the employers, to nonprofit organizations, to even maybe townships, government, and rural and the urban, and really a multitude of the banking industry, right? Because the financing, we're looking at also maybe faith-based, potentially faith-based. We have seen projects in other cities, faith-based organizations, they actually build, mixed use, actually neighborhood. We have seen that. So it really takes all different partners to work together. And so what we'll probably more have something more concrete to have conversation with the administration. But definitely we've, since the pandemic, I mean, just when the federal government and the state have lots of money, we've seen even just the coalition, the county, not McLean County, but the name is McLean County Housing Coalition, but the Housing Assistance Coalition. I mean, the membership has grown, from a few to now it's over 20, because they're playing different roles, from immigration projects to other like organizations. They play a role in the housing needs, but they are all really trying to solve or trying to address the housing problem. So we cannot do without them, all great people in the community. And we're just so proud of, we're just so many different groups. They were meeting monthly, willing to try to solve the problem for the last 4 years. So, yeah.
Could you speak a little to, you had mentioned the idea of we need more diversity of homes, obviously in the community. I know the Realtors also did a session with the Missing Middle that I went to that was really good, but just for the maybe community and also others of us who haven't heard, could you speak a little bit to what we could do to help spur that diversity of housing in the community?
Yes, other on the policy level, I think goes down to zoning ordinance, because we have the zoning code, or the city has, and so do other municipalities, have the single family, multifamily attached. I think by reviewing whether it could be relaxed or opened for consider there might be at certain locations, may not be across the board. I think it depends on the location that it can be viewed as on a covered review basis, where maybe a transitional, for example, between commercial uses to a single family subdivision, there might be some open land. Maybe there's some area that has dilapidated housing. Could those be kind of what I call transition that would be ripe for multifamily or attached single family, that I've seen in other communities where it's a great progression. Nobody wants to, like people in the single family homes detached, they don't want to live right behind a strip center, for example, but maybe attached housing and multifamily kind of transition in terms of density and also in terms of building height, could serve the purpose and still will be open for people who have like different life cycles to meet their needs. So I think it definitely can be reviewed on the zoning and kind of open up for possible permitted uses for certain locations.
Can I ask one more?
Sure.
And this one's kind of open, but I've read about other communities and things, and the things that I always kind of see that pop out that I think could be things that we could explore. And I don't know if you all, I'm sure you have, because you guys are the experts by far. But things that I've read related to like density bonuses for low-income housing, the idea of we as a city for incentives could waive things like sewer tap-on fees up to a certain amount to help with developers. I also really like the idea of pre-approved building plans that are ready for construction, that have gone through everything. I mean, are those different programs that you think we could implement here that other communities are doing as well?
I think so, seriously. Yeah, we thought it takes time, staff time, really to look at, but it's something that will be doable from my perspective. Yeah.
Okay.
If I could also.
Go ahead, sorry.
And if I can also add just parking minimums and lot minimums, those are small things that can actually really increase the cost of development. So if we want to bring those costs down to really entice more development, you can remove those too. So.
Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to go with Councilmember Motney and then Bolin.
Thank you guys all for being here and for caring about this. So as someone who was on the Planning Commission prior to joining this council, we have issued many special use permits in order to accommodate any zoning issue and that sort of thing. it kind of strikes me that the first thing we talk about is, code changes. And yet I want to come back to something Patrick said at the very beginning. And that is this community, along with our neighbors down the street in the town, we have approved, and in some cases with incentives, 2,500, 3,000 units here in the past 2 or 3 years. And yet so many of them have never broken ground. You mentioned, Patrick, barriers that you asked those folks about. What can you share about your experience there?
I think some of it's been mentioned already, but just the overall cost of money has definitely skyrocketed since we started doing this. Not only the cost of money, but then also, I guess, how risk averse that the banks have become just over the past year. What they used to want down, they want more down now. Everyone's literally tightening their wallet across the board, supply of labor. And then also, I think it comes down to the product. And we're known, I think, in Illinois, but Bloomington Normal is not really known across the nation. So when I go out to get lending outside of here, they're willing to lend in Austin, Texas, because everybody knows Austin, Texas, or Chicagoland. They don't know us. So it's a variety of things. We do have a running list when it comes to why the banks won't lend, but then there's also barriers that could be overcome. And I believe that one of the things that Councilmember Hendricks was talking about was something that South Bend has overcame. So there are some things that we can change, and even just having the difference in zoning requirements between the town and the city. In Indiana, there's one building code for the entire state. So any developer that's there can build anywhere they want in Indiana. They know exactly how to do it. Here, we have people that'll build in Bloomington and Bloomington only, and then normal only. So there's a couple of things that we could change barrier-wise locally as well with some of that collaboration that Ray was talking about. But really, it's just like the cost of everything is going way further than we expected.
I don't recall necessarily in Bloomington any of the issues that have been raised for us in approving these plans over these last few years being zoning related. I mean, just, from my personal experience. But I want to come back to something that our attendee from Mira said, which is, these developers are doing the math. Right. And, the macroeconomic issues, Patrick, that you're talking about are things that really are existing across this country. And while there are some things that we can do locally, I mean, the macroeconomic issues across this entire country is not something that really we could action. But from that, I'm interested to hear a little bit more about the recommendation for property tax incentive tied to new construction. I'm very intrigued by that. At the same time, I'm in my head thinking about the reality of the tax bills that just went out here within the last few weeks. Many of our residents received actually a tax bill that exceeded the amount of what that incentive would be just within that period of time. So within that, a comment and then kind of a question back to you about it. One thing that I think we have the opportunity to collaborate on, Ray, back to your opportunity to get folks together, is the collective of all of the taxing bodies that are impacting local property taxes, because each of us are only looking at our own slice. And then, with all of those get in, I mean, we've seen slides that say it's only going to be from us $48 or $140, but there are 10 conversations like that going on all over our community within the same few weeks toward the end of the year. So I think, developing a point of view as to how we could collaborate to make that piece affordable across the board, I think clearly there's an opportunity for improvement. So with regard to this idea of yours, you mentioned a specific number. Is that something that, I mean, you're just thinking that might be enough of a motivation? Would it be on a percentage basis? Would it be something that you would see as a whole dollar amount that would motivate people perhaps to move from that once every 12 years back down toward once every 7 or 8?
I think $2,500, when I was just doing my own research, I was just thinking that will be a good amount for every household. that they're saving on that kind of a, you can talk about percentage. We can all come up with good ideas and see how city can still make money because you guys have to run the city too. It's not that we don't want to give the property tax. We are very happy to give the property tax, but if we don't give some incentive, we are not breaking that wherever we are stuck right now. So that number just came to my mind, just thinking, okay, suppose $10,000 and we are giving a break of 2,500 just for first 5 years. After that, it will go back to 10. It will not remain forever. That might really attract quite a few buyers. They said, oh, if I'm buying this, like government sometimes give $6,000 first time home buyer grant. A lot of people take advantage of that and they buy the houses, and every house you purchase, it brings back so many dollars, thousands of dollars back to the economy. I don't know the recent number, but it used to be some very high number. So to me, if we are giving these small incentive and it is helping our economy, helping our city, helping our buyers, helping our homeowners affordability, why not to pay attention?
I know I was able to buy my first home because of a county program for first-time home buyers. So I'd like to come back to Patrick for another question about the local economic issues that might be making lenders here locally a little hesitant. We learned last week in the presentation that the housing units that are hypothesized don't net out those who choose to commute. And secondly, we hear a lot about the Rivian numbers. We don't hear so much about other large employers who are outsourcing to, subcontractors who are allowing virtual work, and we're seeing people leave our community for that. Also, with regard to even the announcements recently with Rivian, it was to close the gap on some business model challenges that are making it difficult for them. And I'm just wondering, Patrick, what you're hearing about any hesitancy with regard to vulnerability that this population boom that could occur might not, as 2007, 8, and 9 were mentioned also earlier in the panel discussion.
It's a great question. There's multiple layers there. Trying to predict out if it could not happen. I mean, everything that we're doing right now is based off of numbers that we've seen, not including numbers that we have that are not even public yet. And also the numbers that I've given even assume that 2.4 of these residents or workers all live together, which we know that's not true either. Because I know if I said the whole number, it would scare the mess out of everybody. So we basically say it's, around that 9,000 mark. If it doesn't happen, I don't see that. I mean, this is not just a local thing. This is a nationwide thing right now in the housing shortage. For us, I think it's really going to depend on how you incentivize, where you incentivize, what type of product you incentivize. Because even right now, we have this branding campaign going on where we want to try to figure out how do we make this a place where our kids can stick around. I mean, I've got a daughter getting ready to graduate college right now, and there's no way she can afford to live here. So it's multi-leveled as far as that population not happening, but being the home of a state school with over 20,000 college students, I chose to move here because of that. Economic development's a game of workforce right now, and they're sitting there. So my thing is like, how do we capture that funnel? And if we don't have the homes or the product to do it, we're not going to capture them. I mean, I might as well be going somewhere that's a bigger city where they're all flocking to. So I don't think that the population is not going to happen. I can guarantee you it won't happen if we don't have the product. But as far as the jobs, I can't predict if these jobs are going to stick around. I know there's a lot of companies, manufacturers, data centers, they're all looking at us right now because we have low power and we have low cost of land. And as my generation, Gen X, is so tiny, and as the boomers continue to retire, they're looking, how do we automate more? And that's why we're very popular right now. So they're going to keep coming here and they're going to keep asking. But as far as like, will that population boom not happen? I can't predict that far out.
Well, the percentage of home ownership is a key metric that feeds into Bloomington being listed on so many of these top 10 lists in the country. And I think that's something that we should certainly keep in mind. But thank you guys very much.
Councilmember Boland?
A question popped into my mind when you were talking about homeowners and what they're looking for and all. Has there been any conversation or have you talked to actual like people that are looking for homes and what exactly they're looking for? Can you share that? I mean, are some people looking for smaller homes, or are they looking for 4-bedroom homes? Or are they looking to live out on the edge of town? Do they want to live in the center of town? I mean, what are you hearing from that?
So what we are hearing as boots on the ground is affordability is the number one thing. Based on that, they come up with ideas, okay, everybody loves independent homes. That's how we are all, I should not be saying spoiled, but we are very fortunate to have larger homes on a larger grounds, have a background and backyard and everything. But lately, last 2-3 years, with this housing shortage, people are ready to adjust, change their needs. From 4-bedroom, they have said, okay, I can live with one less bedroom. I don't need a big yard. I can have a small yard, just which I can fence for my dog. So it is shifting in their mind also. So with that shifting, if we need to shift too, to be able to provide them what they can afford now. The problem is coming right now with all this high inflation is affordability has become very difficult. Right now, if I sell an older home, which is like 10, 20 years old, for the price, I cannot get the new construction with the same square footage, same features, same everything. So that is why every time the older home comes on the market, we are seeing multiple offers. Still, we are seeing multiple offers because people know they can get more for their dollar when they buy existing home versus the new construction. But if we don't build new, we are in this problem for a very, very long time. Like Patrick was saying, we are already 4+ million houses short in this country. And if we don't start taking action now and do something about it, that number is going to go up and up and up.
No, I mean, I know, I understand. That's why we're having this conversation here.
Yes.
I do want to make a comment just overall. We as a council and a community and everybody that's going to be on that committee needs to be very, very thoughtful about the policies that we put in place, because some of the government policies that are in place brought us to where we are today. So I just want to bring that up. And I also want to bring up, we've been talking a lot about single-family home ownership and affordability, but there's affordability with a capital A, let's say, which would need to be, somehow subsidized, state, federal subsidy, something like that. And then there's small a affordable, which you were addressing, where, okay, here's this $400,000 house I would love to have, but I can't afford it. So I will look for a $200,000 home because that's within my budget. That is affordable. There's no question about that. You can't live beyond your means. So, again, we need to be talking the same language. I think that there is probably a large need, like Councilmember Hendricks said, for renters. Not everybody wants to mow a lawn and pay for their roof replacement and all that type of thing. So, and then you look at median income. The large majority of people in this community fall into that median income of the bell curve. So median income, 70,000, 50 to 70,000. So you need to have homes or apartments that those families can afford. The Pantagraph had building permits, an article on building permits. I thought, I'll look at it. We're going to be talking about this stuff. The only homes that are being built or the permits that were issued over the last month were $300,000 plus, and they're being built on the periphery of town in green space. Our comprehensive plan calls for infill. We need to focus on the infill development for affordable housing that is connected with public transportation that is walkable. So that is where I'm going as far as affordable and overall. There's lots of puzzle pieces that have to be put together. But we have to focus on the majority of the members of this community, not the well-to-do only, not those that want to buy a home, but on those that need shelter. And there's a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Becker?
Just a comment on something that I would like to see, and I think, obviously, this is a very complex problem, but I would love to see something where somebody would say, of your 9,000 units, Patrick, I need 500 that are 6 bedrooms or more. I need 400 that are 4 bedrooms. I need 300 apartments that fit in this price range. I need 4,000 that fit. I would like to see somebody make that kind of quantified recommendation. And also, when you go to solve a problem that's huge, how do you eat the elephant? One bite at a time? What is the bite that we should take first? And really recommend, this is the split that we need. This is the one that, based on current economic conditions, we can probably achieve faster than, can I go build 1,000 new big independent houses faster than I can put up 1,000 units of apartment? No, I can't. What makes sense from truly the economics that the companies have to deal with, that the incentives? I'd like to see somebody come up with that recommendation. I could spend a year and have fun with the math, but I probably couldn't do it nearly as well as you can. So I'd like to see that.
I can do it right now. There's, so the majority of all these jobs that we're talking about pay about $55,000 a year. So you take 30% of that, and that's what the thing that we need to be looking at. We all look at the construction pro forma, but we need to be looking at the operating pro forma afterwards. And so it has to be somewhere around that $1,200 a month mark.
Okay.
So-
I think, sorry, we just ran out of time in terms of so maybe a motion to extend.
I'll motion
I'll
to
move,
extend the
I'll
time.
second that motion
Okay.
because I've got
sounds-
some questions.
Okay. Okay, can you just voice vote?
Did you say a time? Sorry.
10.
10,
minutes.
thank you.
Is that okay?
Councilmember Kearns.
I feel like we're gonna need more, but 15? Is that okay with you, Councilmember Monty?
I will revise the motion to ask for 15 minutes
Okay,
of additional
awesome.
time.
And the seconder, who was the seconder?
Ward.
Ward, okay, yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Councilmember Kearns.
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin.
Yes.
Councilmember Motney.
Yes.
Councilmember Dannenberger.
Yes.
Councilmember Becker.
Yes.
Councilmember Hendrick.
Yes.
Councilmember Ward.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes.
Can I do
Okay,
one,
yes,
one
yeah, go
very
ahead,
short
yeah.
follow-up, and that's, so to your point, Patrick, all right, you need apartments or housing of some sort that's gonna conform to a $1,200 a month payment. What does it take, going to the developer's side of things, how can I make housing that fits into that? And what's their cost model? What incentive do they need? Let's take the math back and try and figure out where we have to be to achieve that goal.
Yes, exactly. So that's what we would do for any startup business that comes in. What is your model? Where's your gap? And that gap's going to depend on the location. We've got some great buildings that are in downtown with a little bit of TLC. That those supplies are already there. A lot of times when you're building a new house, there's a limit on even transformers to be able to build a new subdivision. Well, these supplies are already existing. They're existing buildings. So maybe it's just the cost of adding elevators or ADA compliance or sprinklers. I mean, things that a lot of the banks maybe not want a loan for. So that's something that you could definitely look at. But reversing that model is exactly what we can help them do. The question that they need to be able to do is come to you guys with an ask that makes sense for them and for you and for the banks.
Okay, let me go to Councilmember Ward for a second. Councilmember Ward?
Yeah, thanks a lot. The statement was made earlier, and thanks for the opportunity to have this conversation. I'm really learning a lot, and I'm the wheels are turning. But the statement was made earlier with regard to offering incentives, particularly around property taxes, that every dollar counts. And I'm curious, does that also apply to the idea that every housing unit counts? Because when I think, 8, 9,000 units that we need, that seems very large and very overwhelming, in some ways. And I'm asking myself, well, so, is the only thing that we focus on the hundreds and hundreds of units in a development, is that the only thing worth putting our efforts into? Or do we also, plausibly put our efforts into helping to refurbish single units of derelict properties one at a time that dot many of our older neighborhoods? I mean, I'm thinking of probably a half a dozen within just a couple blocks of my house that with some incentives, somebody might be able to fix those up and move into them. Is it worth putting our efforts into that? So I don't ask this of any particular panel member, but I'm curious what your thinking is. Does every unit count, or should we only be focusing on the hundreds of development units?
Anybody?
Yeah, definitely. From our standpoint, I think we should look at new units as well as preservation or renovation of existing units that are maybe in a bad shape, maybe they're aged. Because from looking at the age of the housing stocks, I think majority of the housing in our area, they are like 60, 70 years old. Of course, they are over 100 years old. So really, when we look at the supply, not just looking at the new units, but also looking at the existing, if that could be resurrected, that can be brought up to code. But of course, that have to look at the cost, right? Because it still costs money. So the current owner has to do the math too. Not the big developer, but the existing homeowners, property owners, they have to look at, does it make sense? Even for multi-family buildings, even for single-family homes, whether it's in a neighborhood or in a neighborhood that say that in general they were built around the same time, so they're aging around the same time. But because their location is worth to bring those back to life, and that would increase the value, but also that would increase the supply side. And so we have seen, and you might have seen in some other blocks or some other communities, where people would tear down their 60, 70-year-old home, one story, and then put up like a 2-story home that could sell for like double, triple, right? Because the maps, but a lot of times it depends on the location.
And maybe others have other comments on that as well.
Yeah, it looks like Patrick, did you want to say something, or Mark? Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to add to Ray's point, about 2/3 of our housing stock in the county is older than 2000. And really, one of the many tools that came up in a regional housing recovery plan is just the land trust model. And we come back to that because with a land trust model, the goal is to really rehab single-family homes, really get them to the point where they are livable, to your point, Molly. And so really, once those homes are acquired, even though the land may be leased and is technically owned by that land trust, the physical home would be handed over to that prospective homeowner, and that can really bring down that purchase price by 20, even 40%. So you have really the rehab going on. The neighborhood looks better, more tax dollars coming into the respective bodies. So it definitely, I agree with you, every unit counts. And that really, we have a lot of untapped potential in this current market. So just want to add that.
Patrick?
Yes, now I would add, not to give Mose more work, but if you had your engineering department do a cost benefit analysis as far as, how much it costs to maintain property on the outside of town compared to the inside of town, I would probably base your incentives off of that, because infrastructure is already there. Snow removal doesn't cost as much as far as it goes. So I would do that, probably even based off of police location, fire location. If you expand too far in one direction, you're gonna have to move your firehouses. So there's a lot of factors that go into that. So I don't think all properties are created equal. There's certain areas that you guys should target, incentivize more. Another thing that you can do to speed up that process is if you take the assessment data that's inside MCGIS over the past 10 years and just show the growth, there's going to be areas of town, drop it on a heat map. You're going to see some bright red spots, which you can drive by and see them, but if you throw them on a map, it's going to show all of them. So you bring up those property and values, then everything around it's going to go up in value as well. So I would take care of your own backyard first before ever considering growing out more.
Sounds good.
One other
Councilmember-
question, if I could.
Okay.
Does anybody know just roughly what percentage of the vacant infill properties are owned by out-of-town folks versus people here within the community?
No, but we could find that out if we had the raw data that's inside of MCGIS.
Yeah, I'd be really interested in knowing that because I sometimes, and maybe this is more, you know, with regard to some derelict properties that we come across once in a while. I sometimes hear, well, you know, we're working our way through the courts, or, you know, they don't live close by, and, you know, working our way through things, and it just seems like a struggle. And I'd be very curious to know how many properties that represents.
Sounds good. Councilmember Motley?
Just a couple of follow-up questions from both Councilmember Ward's comments and also Councilmember Becker's. So first of all, as it relates to rental units, which I agree are very important, this council in 2023 approved two very large rental unit development areas. One included an annexation of 77 acres. I think you're familiar with that. And also one that is out in the Links area, residences at the Links. And I think that one was 17 buildings and 300 units, and the other one was 800 units. So when we're talking about all of these various macroeconomic issues that are impacting the ability for developers to build houses that they can sell at 150K, 200K, the apartments are in kind of a different lane there. What insights do you have as to why we're 1 year, and in one case, you know, a year and a half from those approval dates, and we're still waiting to see that development? Any thoughts there?
So I know for one of them, I don't even know how much I can say publicly about them, but financing has definitely been tight. But one of them did get approved by the new TRIVDA bonding authority. So that is brand new, probably within the last month or so, that they can go and actually use that bonding authority. So that's just one more tool that we have in the toolbox that they're going to take advantage of. So hopefully that one will get moving since they just got approval from that one. The other one, I don't know.
And then I'd also like to just comment and affirm Councilmember Ward's comments about every unit counts. And I think, you know, unlike states like New York, we are fortunate, as Patrick mentioned earlier, that land costs here are not that expensive. So I think, you know, we could certainly look at opportunities to make a difference, one unit at a time, one residence at a time, you know, supporting folks in that area to reinforce the planning documents support for infill development.
Yeah, one of the ways on that is to excuse me, to visit the when they to do the renovations and whatever for the existing homes would be the building permit fees. I mean, that's one way to incentivize. You look at the building permit fees. You know, to why them. You in addition to give like $2,500 or whatever, but for like a single home owners, that makes a difference.
And with Mira's input as well, I think we have as many as 600 or more units here that are out of the market due to Airbnb short-term rentals, many of which have owners that are not located here within our community. I'm just wondering, in your research on this topic, how that plays into housing availability and what your thoughts are there.
I didn't do the much research on that, but what I hear is a lot of investors are buying, and they are focusing on bigger profits than the less profits. And Airbnb is a hospitality business. It's not a business where you have people for year round, you know. So I'm seeing some are drifting away from that also, because it's hard for them to keep up. But it has really taken a big movement last 3-4 years. Everybody wants to buy and then convert them into, and that has also helped shorten our residential unit, you know.
All the way from the lowest price point to the million plus price point. That entire spectrum of price points in this community is impacted by houses that are only occupied sometimes just a few days a month, if even that, because they're being held for daily rental.
That's exactly what it is. Yep.
Oh, Councilmember Hendricks.
Just very quickly, and this is actually more so maybe for mayor and city manager. So I know we have a meeting coming up with city staff, but what are our tangible next steps for where this conversation is going so that we're not just talking around an issue and not taking those steps?
Right. Well, I think, you know, it's a good segue to what I was going to say. I think it's clear to me and that we have some things that we probably need to look at in the short term in order to be able to address this issue. What that looks like, I'm not 100% sure. I think it's a matter of all of us coming together and agreeing on what that looks like. But I think also in the long term, I think we, you know, with Patrick and I had a conversation, and I think with Ray as well, just, you know, through email, just thinking about how we got here and how some companies don't necessarily disclose their numbers. And that's something that I don't know if we can make them do that, but we certainly need to look at how we address an issue like this in the long term. We don't want to find ourselves in a similar situation 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years from now. So we definitely need to have something in place that we can that allows us to really when we see you know, quite a bit of development economically where the housing does not become an impediment. So we definitely need to take a look at that. And I know Jeff wanted to make some comments as well about, you know, the next steps. We talked about financing and other things.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. And first, I'd just like to say, I think this has been a really, really good conversation. And I appreciate everybody coming tonight, and I appreciate everybody's involvement and attention to this. I would say that if you walk away from this and you have other questions, get them to us. You know, this might just start to get you thinking. Get those questions to us and we'll get them to the panel and we'll get additional answers from you. As to what comes next, I really hope that at our last meeting in June, we come forward with a concrete plan, a resolution that this council can act on, see if there's consensus as to what those steps we're going to take will be. And you can actually vote on something at the end of June that we then go out there and start implementing and doing. I will tell you, I really like the idea of a collaborative effort of us coming together and trying to tackle this as a community. I think I really like that idea. That's something I'm certainly going to propose to this council. But I think there are other things we can do as well. And so I foresee this as being a lot of different steps that we can potentially take. And obviously, if the council says, no, I don't like this, then we'll take that out and we'll move forward with the other ones. Or if the council says, hey, I really like this idea, then we'll throw that in there and we'll march that way. So I'm really, again, very happy with this conversation. The only other thing I was going to add, I pulled up on apartments.com kind of to some of the conversation Councilmember Becker and Patrick, you were having about the 30% rule, and we really need, you know, that $1,200 a month price. On apartments.com, when you type in Bloomington, and it includes Bloomington and Normal, you get 400 apartments. And, you know, I don't know if that's high or low for our area, but you get 400. When you put the price point in of under 1,200, it goes down to 30. So, you know, there is a big gap in what is out there and what's affordable for people. So I also like the idea of, the more stock we can add, you're going to start to see some adjustments in that and the prices. A lot to do here, but we are committed to doing this and figuring this out. And again, I really appreciate the panel for coming tonight and all of the expertise that you added to the conversation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all very much and stay tuned for more. Okay, so next we're going to move on to the city manager's discussion.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. A couple of different slides tonight, but first, one slide I don't have is in relation to our bulk waste pickup was completed last week. This was Public Works Director Mose Ricky, first time doing bulk waste pickup. They had just one extra overtime hour in this entire thing. They were on time every day and they were on time for the entire program. So really appreciated that. We did not get a lot of calls or complaints. It seemed to go very well. And so, and again, to Colleen as well, but really appreciated that. So wanted to highlight that and show our appreciation for Mose. All right, if we're ready for the first slide here. The first thing I wanted to point out, talk a little bit about water tonight. We were going to have Ed Andrews, our water director, give a quick report. And just because we had so much on the agenda, we moved it to this format. But there are three things I wanted to point out. The first is by statute, we had to submit our lead line inventory last month. Those numbers have been in flux, but the latest number, we have just under 12,000 lead lines and some that are not quite identified that we'll have to identify throughout this process. Letters on this, the statutes require that letters go out on this, and those went out last week. The letters are kind of dictated by what the statutes say, but they basically explain that, you've been identified as having a lead line, and so it gives some additional information about that. The one thing I wanted to say is, we've also put in there information about where to call if there are questions. So we have our support staff lined up to answer questions. I can imagine you get a letter like this and you're probably pretty concerned. The other thing I would say though, is even if you have a lead line, that doesn't mean you've got lead in your drinking water. The chemical compounds that these make up, the lead is not actually getting through to your water supply. Ed Andrews was telling me with our latest report, they were finding 1.3 parts per billion of lead. The actual action limit is 15 parts per billion. So we are well under in our water supply, the lead content. So even though we've got a lot of lead lines in the community and we're sending information out about this, in my estimation, that, and according to our experts, there's not a need to panic. But by law, we've got to remove these lead lines, and this is the process that we're starting to do and to work on this. We have set up a special website, so you can go to bloomingtonillinois.gov/lead services. You can find out all kinds of information about the lead lines. You can find out an interactive map. You can see where our lead lines are. A lot of information there, so just wanted to share that with the council and the community. And next slide. Again, we've been trying to do a lot of press and trying to get out there in front of the community and the public with the water rates that have now gone into effect. We've stood up another website, bloomingtonillinois.gov/water rates. At this website, you can get information on why the water rates had to be increased, but also you can find out how to get assistance if you need assistance paying the increase. Not just assistance from the city's program, but other nonprofits that help with these programs. So if you're hearing a constituent or you know of somebody that's having a problem paying for some of these increases, this is a great resource to have, and we're trying to make sure that the community is aware of this. Next slide. Last thing on water, just wanted to point out, we've started this water rate increase, and we're not wasting any time getting this money put to work. So we are in the process of bidding the Prairie Vista Water Tower. I know it's kind of hard to see on there, but it's kind of the left-hand corner of that map, where we will be, one of our system-wide improvements will be to add a water tower to this area of town at this location. Wanted to share that the price for this actually came in under budget at $7.5 million. We anticipated it was going to be 10 or a little over a million. We were actually to use that savings to get ahead of some of the work that IDOT is doing on Market Street. So we're using some of the other savings to get some work done with regard to water line replacement and lead line replacement along Market Street. So a little bit of a good news story there, but wanted to share that we'll be doing the groundbreaking on that probably in 2 or 3 weeks, middle of June, somewhere around there. So wanted to share that as well. Next slide. Talking, again, homeless is kind of top of mind in this community. Wanted to share that last week, a few of us went to the city of Peoria to meet with a service provider there who showed us some of what they're doing in that city to address the homeless issue and some of the concerns that they have in that city. Deputy City Manager Tice went with me, and I would say our minds were pretty much blown with what we saw there. The passion that they have, the organization that they have, and the services that they provide were really inspiring and impressive. We came back with a lot of different ideas. I would say this is not an issue that falls squarely in the city's lap, but with the current situation with the service providers, we are doing everything we can to get everybody together and make sure that we can build this up and we can get the services in this community that we need. To that vein, tomorrow morning, we will be having our second meeting of our kind of our homeless coalition group. We're adding, I think we had 11 or so different service providers that you see up there. We're going to be adding a couple more tomorrow. PATH, the Regional Office of Education, we're going to have some representatives from them join us as well. But we're going to get back together actually in this room and talk about what we can do as next steps and what we can do to address the issues that we're seeing in this community. It is getting hot outside, and I would say everybody is very concerned about the temperatures and that encampment being on the hot concrete without shade. So we are looking for as quick of a solution to turn this around as possible, and I'll continue to keep you updated on that as well. Next slide, real quick, O'Neill Park and Pool, mentioned this last week. Ribbon cutting will be Friday, May 24th. The pool will then be open to the general public on the next day on Saturday. Very excited about this. If you have not seen this yet, this is just an incredible facility. For lazy, one of the first lazy rivers in the region, a great water slide. It's really exciting, and it's going to be a great addition to the west side of town. Next slide. My last slide is on the library. Friday, they will be fully open to the public. They are in the process now. They're closed and they're finishing the process. They had 100,000 items they had to unpack from 3,000 different boxes. And they ended up doing this internally with their library staff. And because they did that, they saved $191,000. They had gotten some quotes to have other people come in and reshelve the books and unpack everything. Thought that was too much money, and they ended up coming together as a team and doing that. And so we were very excited to hear that this morning when Library Director Hamilton was talking about that. They're very excited about this. They'll still be working out some tweaks, but as of Friday, you're going to be able to go into that library and go anywhere you want. You will see that every inch of that library has been updated and remodeled and reorganized. It is really going to be an exciting thing for this community to have. That said, I think that's everything I've got.
Okay, awesome. Very good report. I think our next step is that we are going to now ask for a motion to enter into executive session per section 2C5 of 5 ILCS 120 to discuss the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body. And I'll need a second as well.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Bolin and second by Councilmember Hendricks.
All right.
Voice vote?
Yes, Councilmember Kearns,
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin,
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Dannenberger,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Councilmember Hendricks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes.
Okay. Council is entering executive session per section 2C5 of 5 ILCS 120 to discuss the purchase of lease of real property for the use of the public body. The room must be cleared. Council will resume the open session meeting following executive session. No additional action will be taken except to adjourn regular session.